The Awakening, the Galactic Academy of Xenobiology and Cultural Studies hung suspended in the void, a gleaming beacon of interstellar cooperation. Its crystalline spires and swirling energy fields housed the brightest minds from 1,000 worlds, all dedicated to understanding the vast tapestry of life that spread across the cosmos. On this particular cycle, the Academy buzzed with an unusual level of excitement. Whispers raced through its twisting corridors, carried by beings of every conceivable shape and form. Tentacles gesticulated wildly, antennae twitched in anticipation, and bioluminescent patches flashed in rapid communication. "Have you heard?" chirped Zilks, avian-like creature with iridescent feathers. "They're letting a Deathworlder enroll." His study partner, a gelatinous mass named Bluepoo, rippled with shock. "Surely not. They're far too dangerous to be around civilized beings." The source of their alarm was a simple announcement on the Academy's Hivemind network. "Please welcome our newest student, Samantha Chen of Earth, Class 12 Deathworld." In her quarters, Samantha Chen stretched languorously, her muscular frame filling the specially reinforced bed. She blinked sleep from her eyes, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. The events of the past few weeks came rushing back. The scholarship offer, the mind-bending journey through fold space, and her arrival at this impossible structure floating in the stars. A chime sounded, and a holographic interface sprang to life beside her. "Greetings, Student Chen," a melodious voice intoned. "This is your wake-up call. Your first class begins in 1 standard hour." Samantha groaned, fighting the urge to ask for 5 more minutes. She knew the importance of making a good first impression, especially given the controversy surrounding her admission. With a sigh, she swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood, her 1.8-meter frame dwarfing most of the Academy's furnishings. As she went through her morning routine, Samantha couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She was the first human to ever set foot in the Academy, a pioneer representing her entire species. The weight of that responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders. Meanwhile, in the faculty lounge, heated discussion was taking place. Professor Xixel, a veteran xenobiologist with skin like polished obsidian, gesticulated with his upper limbs. "I still say this is madness. Bringing a Deathworlder here puts every student at risk." Dean Zyora, her translucent form, shimmering with bioluminescent patterns, remained calm. "Now, Xixel, let's not give in to primitive fears. The human has passed all our screening protocols. This is an unprecedented opportunity for study and cultural exchange." "Exchange?" Xixel scoffed. "What could we possibly learn from a species that evolved on a world that tries to kill them at every turn?" Before Zyora could respond, a new voice joined the conversation. "Perhaps more than you realize, my esteemed colleague." All eyes turned to Professor Clarick, the Academy's expert in adaptive biology. The insectoid being's compound eyes gleamed with interest. "Think about it. A species that thrives under such harsh conditions must have developed extraordinary resilience and problem-solving skills. Their perspective could revolutionize our understanding of evolution itself." As the debate raged on, Samantha made her way through the Academy's winding halls. She marveled at the diversity of life forms around her, beings of crystal and energy, symbiotic colonies that moved as one, and creatures that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Yet, she couldn't help but notice the way others shied away from her, their auras flickering with what she assumed was fear. Squaring her shoulders, Samantha approached the lecture hall for her first class, Introduction to Galactic Civilizations. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. As the doors slid open with a soft hiss, a hush fell over the assembled alien students. All eyes, sensory organs, and perceptual apparatuses turned to regard the human in their midst. Samantha felt a bead of sweat trickle down her spine, but she met their gazes with a determined smile. This was it, the moment that would set the tone for her entire academic career, and perhaps the future of human-alien relations. With deliberate steps, she made her way to an empty seat, hyper-aware of every movement. As she sat down, the reinforced chair creaked slightly under her weight, drawing a few startled gasps from her classmates. "Welcome, students," a melodious voice rang out. The professor, a being of pure energy contained within a humanoid force field, materialized at the front of the room. "Today, we begin our journey into the vast tapestry of galactic cultures, and it seems we have a unique opportunity for first-hand experience." The professor's gaze settled on Samantha. "Would our new student from Earth care to introduce herself?" Samantha stood, feeling the weight of 1,000 alien eyes upon her. She took a deep breath, remembering all the training and preparation that had led to this moment. "Hello, everyone," she began, her voice strong and clear. "I'm Samantha Chen from Earth. I know many of you have never encountered a human before, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I'm here to learn, just like all of you, but I'm also here to share. I hope that together, we can bridge the gap between our worlds and build a stronger, more understanding galactic community." A murmur ran through the class, some curious, some apprehensive, but all undeniably intrigued. As Samantha sat back down, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. The journey ahead would be challenging, full of misunderstandings and cultural clashes. But in that moment, as questions began to flow, and the initial tension started to ease, she knew that something extraordinary had begun. Little did Samantha, or any of her alien classmates, realize that the greatest challenge to their budding interspecies understanding was yet to come. For lurking in the background, unnoticed and misunderstood, was a fundamental aspect of human biology that would soon turn the Academy on its head: the simple, inexorable need for sleep. Clash of cultures. The first few days at the Galactic Academy had been a whirlwind for Samantha Chen. She'd marveled at lectures on quantum entanglement communication, participated in debates about the ethics of terraforming, and even started to make a few tentative friendships among her alien classmates. But as the initial excitement wore off, an insidious enemy began to creep up on her: exhaustion. Samantha stifled a yawn as she tried to focus on Professor Zixlith's lecture on non-Euclidean architecture. The holographic displays swirled with mind-bending geometries, but Samantha found her eyelids growing heavier by the minute. She'd been pushing herself hard, trying to keep up with the Academy's relentless pace, but the lack of a proper sleep schedule was taking its toll. Beside her, Glixspor, a mollusk-like being with iridescent tentacles, noticed her struggle. "Are you unwell, Samantha?" he whispered, concern evident in the patterns rippling across his skin. "I'm fine," Samantha mumbled, shaking her head to clear the fog. "Just a bit tired." Glixspor's eye stalk swiveled in confusion. "Tired? I'm not familiar with this concept." Before Samantha could explain, a sharp voice cut through the lecture hall. "Student Chen, perhaps you'd care to share your insights on hyperspatial load-bearing structures with the class." Samantha jerked upright, blinking rapidly. She stammered, her mind blank. Professor Zixlith's crystalline form shimmered with disapproval. "I see. It seems our Deathworlder finds our curriculum less than engaging. Tell me, Student Chen, do you consider yourself above such mundane knowledge?" Heat rose to Samantha's cheeks as she felt the eyes of the entire class upon her. "No, Professor, I apologize. I'm just having trouble concentrating because I haven't slept in a while." A confused murmur rippled through the classroom. Professor Zixlith's facets rearranged themselves into what Samantha had come to recognize as an expression of puzzlement. "Sleep. Ah yes, that peculiar state of unconsciousness your species requires. Are you saying you've been neglecting this biological imperative?" Samantha shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Well, it's been difficult to find time. The Academy schedule doesn't really account for human sleep cycles." The professor's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been a sigh. "I see. Class dismissed." Student Chen, please remain behind. As her classmates filed out, a mix of curious and judgmental glances thrown her way, Samantha approached the professor's desk with trepidation. Miss Chen, Zixlith began, his tone softer now. I admit, we may have overlooked certain aspects of human biology in our eagerness to integrate you into the academy. Perhaps you could enlighten me about these sleep requirements of yours. Samantha explained as best she could about circadian rhythms, REM cycles, and the cognitive impairments that came with sleep deprivation. As she spoke, she could see the professor's crystalline structure shifting and realigning, processing this new information. Fascinating, Zixlith mused, and potentially problematic. Your need for regular periods of unconsciousness could put you at a significant disadvantage here, not to mention the security concerns of having a temporarily incapacitated being on campus. Samantha felt a flicker of anger at the implication. With all due respect, Professor, humans have managed to build a thriving civilization despite, or perhaps because of, our need for sleep. It's not a weakness, it's an integral part of how we function. The professor's facets rearranged into what Samantha hoped was a contemplative expression, perhaps, but it is a deviation from galactic norms that we'll need to address. I'll speak with the administration about adjusting your schedule. In the meantime, please, sleep, if you must. We can't have you operating at suboptimal capacity. As Samantha left the classroom, relief mingled with frustration. She appreciated the professor's willingness to accommodate her, but the underlying attitude still stung. Her need for sleep wasn't some bizarre quirk or inconvenient flaw. It was a fundamental part of her humanity. For the next few days, whispers followed Samantha through the academy's halls. Some students regarded her with newfound curiosity, peppering her with questions about dreams and sleep habits. Others seemed to view her with a mixture of pity and disdain, as though her need for rest was a sign of weakness unbecoming of a sentient species. The situation came to a head during a group project in Xenobiology lab. Samantha found herself paired with Zerolax, a hive-minded colony of microscopic organisms, and Ecthel, a plasma-based life form contained within an environment suit. "Okay, team," Samantha said, stifling another yawn. "Let's divvy up the research tasks. I can take the genetic sequencing if you two want to handle the morphological analysis and energy readings." Zerolax's collective voice buzzed with irritation. "Perhaps it would be more efficient if Ecthel and I handled all aspects of the project. We wouldn't want your periodic shutdowns to impede our progress." Samantha felt her temper flare. "Excuse me. I'm more than capable of pulling my weight on this team." Echthel's suit crackled with nervous energy. "We mean no offense, Samantha. It's just, well, your sleep cycles are rather unpredictable. What if you enter stasis at a crucial moment?" "It's not stasis," Samantha snapped, "and I can control when I sleep. I'm not going to just pass out in the middle of an experiment." Zerolax's colony rippled skeptically. "Can you? From what we've observed, your kind seems rather at the mercy of this biological imperative. It's a wonder your species ever achieved spaceflight, having to spend a third of your lives unconscious." Samantha slammed her hand down on the lab bench, causing her teammates to recoil. "That's enough. I'm sick of being treated like some kind of defective specimen. Humans need sleep, yes, but it doesn't make us weak. If anything, it makes us more adaptable, more creative. While you're all running yourselves ragged, we take the time to rest, to process, to dream." Her outburst had drawn the attention of the entire lab. In the ensuing silence, Samantha became acutely aware of the dozens of alien eyes fixed upon her. She took a deep breath, trying to rein in her emotions. "Look," she said, her voice calmer now. "I know my biology is different from yours, but that's the whole point of this academy, isn't it? To learn from our differences. So instead of judging me, why don't you try to understand? You might be surprised by what you discover." As the tension in the room slowly dissipated, Samantha could see curiosity replacing judgment in the eyes of her classmates. Zerl Axis colony shifted in what might have been embarrassment, while Echthal's suit glowed a softer shade of blue. "Perhaps," Echthal said hesitantly, "you could tell us more about this." Dreaming. A small smile tugged at Samantha's lips. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As she launched into an explanation of REM sleep and the human subconscious, she could see the first glimmers of genuine interest in her teammates' expressions. The clash of cultures was far from over, but in that moment, Samantha felt a spark of hope. If she could turn this misunderstanding into an opportunity for growth and learning, then maybe, just maybe, she could pave the way for true interspecies understanding. Little did she know that her impassioned defense of human sleep would soon spark a debate that would shake the very foundations of the Galactic Academy. The Great Debate. News of Samantha Chen's outburst in the Xenobiology lab spread through the Galactic Academy like wildfire. What had begun as a simple misunderstanding about human sleep cycles had ignited a fierce debate about the nature of consciousness, the value of different biological imperatives, and the very foundations of galactic society. The Academy's grand auditorium, a vast chamber that could accommodate beings of all shapes and sizes, was packed to capacity. Hovering orbs transmitted the proceedings to screens throughout the campus and across the galaxy. At the center of it all stood Samantha, feeling both exhilarated and overwhelmed by the attention. Dean Ziora's bioluminescent form pulsed with barely contained excitement as she addressed the assembly. "Esteemed colleagues, honored guests, today we embark on a discussion that may well reshape our understanding of sentient life in the galaxy. The question before us is this: how do we reconcile the vast differences in biological needs among spacefaring species, and what implications do these differences have for galactic cooperation?" Ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Samantha took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. The first to speak was Professor Xixel, his obsidian skin gleaming under the auditorium lights. "Let us not mince words," he began, his voice sharp. "The human propensity for periodic unconsciousness represents a clear and present danger to galactic security. How can we trust a species that willingly renders itself helpless for hours at a time?" Shouts of agreement mingled with hisses of disapproval from the audience. Samantha felt her heart race, but before she could respond, another voice cut through the din. "With all due respect, Professor," came the measured tones of Dr. Cleric, "I believe you're missing the larger picture. Yes, humans enter a state of reduced awareness during sleep, but consider the advantages this might confer. Their brains use this time to consolidate memories, process complex information, and even solve problems subconsciously. It's a fascinating example of evolutionary efficiency." The crowd buzzed with interest. Samantha saw her opening and stepped forward. "If I may," she said, her voice carrying across the auditorium, "sleep isn't just about rest or problem solving. It's an integral part of human creativity and emotional well-being. Some of our greatest scientific and artistic breakthroughs have come from insights gained during dreams." A Thoraxian philosopher, his multifaceted eyes glittering, leaned forward. "Intriguing. You're suggesting that this unconscious state actually enhances your species' cognitive abilities. How do you reconcile this with the obvious vulnerability it creates?" Samantha smiled, warming to the topic. "It's all about balance and adaptation. Yes, sleep makes us vulnerable in the short term, but it makes us stronger and more resilient in the long run. Humans have developed complex social structures and technologies to mitigate the risks. We take turns sleeping, we create safe spaces, we watch out for each other. In a way, our need for sleep has driven us to become more cooperative and innovative." The debate raged on, with experts from various fields weighing in. Xenobiologists discussed the potential evolutionary advantages of sleep, while military strategists argued about its implications for interstellar conflicts. Philosophers pondered the nature of consciousness itself, questioning whether beings who experienced regular interruptions in awareness perceived reality differently from those with continuous consciousness. As the discussion evolved, Samantha noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The initial skepticism and fear were giving way to genuine curiosity and even excitement. Species that had never considered the concept of sleep were now imagining how it might enhance their own lives. A Zygonian engineer, her tentacles waving enthusiastically, proposed, "What if we could design ships and stations that accommodate various sleep cycles? We could create environments that cater to the biological needs of diverse crews, maximizing efficiency and well-being for all." The idea sparked a flurry of discussions about inclusive design and adaptive architecture. Samantha felt a surge of pride, realizing that her simple need for sleep was pushing the boundaries of galactic engineering and social planning. But not everyone was convinced. Collective of energy beings, their forms shimmering with skepticism, voiced their concerns. While this sleep state may have benefits for biological entities, it seems like a tremendous waste of productive time. How can a species that's unconscious for a third of its life hope to compete on a galactic scale? Samantha took a moment to consider her response. "It's not about competition," she said finally. "It's about complementarity. Yes, humans sleep, but that doesn't make us less productive overall. In fact, it might make us more efficient when we're awake. And think about the perspectives we can offer. Our dreams and our art might give insights into aspects of the universe that continuously conscious beings might overlook." The debate took an unexpected turn when a young Aquilian student, her scales shimmering with excitement, shared a radical idea. What if sleep isn't unique to humans? What if many of us have simply forgotten how to do it? A hush fell over the auditorium. The student continued, her voice gaining confidence. "Many of our species evolved from simpler life forms that likely had rest cycles. Perhaps, in our rush to achieve continuous productivity, we've lost touch with a fundamental aspect of our biology. Could relearning how to sleep unlock new potential in all of us?" The suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembly. Species that had prided themselves on their constant awareness suddenly found themselves questioning whether they were missing out on a crucial aspect of existence. As the debate reached its crescendo, Dean Zygora stepped forward, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with intensity. "My fellow beings," she began, "today we stand at a crossroads. The arrival of humans at our academy has challenged our preconceptions and opened our eyes to new possibilities. Perhaps it's time we re-examine our assumptions about consciousness, productivity, and the very nature of sentient life." She turned to Samantha, her form shimmering with what might have been a smile. "Miss Chen, your species' unique biology has given us much to consider. I propose that we establish a new department at the Academy, one dedicated to the study of sleep, dreams, and alternative states of consciousness. With your help, we may unlock secrets that could benefit all species in the galaxy." The auditorium erupted in a cacophony of cheers, whistles, and other alien sounds of approval. Samantha felt a wave of emotion wash over her. What had started as a personal struggle to fit in had blossomed into something far greater. A catalyst for change that could reshape galactic society. As the assembly began to disperse, buzzing with new ideas and possibilities, Samantha found herself surrounded by curious classmates and professors. Their questions came rapid fire, no longer tinged with judgment but brimming with genuine interest. "What does it feel like to dream? Can you teach us how to sleep? Do you think non-biological entities could benefit from sleep-like states?" Samantha laughed, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced since arriving at the academy. "I'll do my best to answer everything," she promised. "But first, I think I need a nap." The joke elicited a chorus of alien laughter. As Samantha made her way out of the auditorium, she couldn't help but feel that something momentous had occurred. The great debate had opened minds and hearts across the galaxy, paving the way for a new era of interspecies understanding. Little did she know that this debate was just the beginning. The true test of the Academy's newfound appreciation for human biology was yet to come. A crisis that would push Samantha and her alien classmates to their limits, forcing them to confront the realities of human vulnerability and strength in ways they never imagined. Crisis and revelation. The excitement generated by the Great Debate had barely begun to settle when alarms blared through the Galactic Academy. Red lights pulsed along the crystalline corridors, and a computerized voice echoed in a dozen different languages. Warning: anomaly detected in the quantum core. All non-essential personnel evacuate immediately. Samantha Chen jolted awake from a nap in the newly established sleep lab, her heart racing. Around her, alien students and researchers scrambled in confusion, their various appendages and sensory organs twitching with anxiety. "What's happening?" Samantha shouted over the din, struggling to orient herself. Professor Cloric's insectoid form skittered into the lab, compound eyes flashing with urgency. "It's the Academy's quantum core," he chittered. "Something's destabilizing it. If we can't contain the reaction, the entire station could be torn apart." As the evacuation began, Samantha found herself swept along with the crowd towards the escape pods. But a nagging thought tugged at her mind. The quantum core, she'd learned about it in her advanced physics class. It was supposed to be fail-safe, with redundancies upon redundancies. For it to malfunction like this. "Wait," Samantha called out, grabbing Professor Cloric's attention. "This doesn't make sense. The core shouldn't be able to destabilize like this unless someone's tampered with it." Cloric's antennae twitched in surprise. "Sabotage. But who would?" Their conversation was cut short as Dean Ziora's bioluminescent form pulsed into view, her patterns flickering with distress. "We have a serious problem," she announced. "The quantum core's containment fields are failing, and our top scientists can't seem to stabilize it. We need to evacuate the entire Academy." Samantha felt a surge of adrenaline. "Dean Ziora, I think this might be deliberate. The core's fail-safes are too robust for this to be an accident." The dean's colors swirled with concern. "That's a serious accusation, Miss Chen. But even if you're right, it doesn't change our immediate problem. We need to shut down the core before it tears the Academy apart." "I might be able to help," Samantha said, surprising herself with her own boldness. "I've been studying quantum mechanics, and I have a fresh perspective on the system." Dean Ziora hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. Professor Cloric, escort Miss Chen to the core chamber. The rest of you, continue with the evacuation." As Samantha and Cloric raced through the emptying corridors, the professor filled her in on the situation. The core's energy levels were fluctuating wildly, creating dangerous space-time distortions throughout the Academy. The science team had been working around the clock to contain it, but exhaustion was setting in, and mistakes were being made. They arrived at the core chamber to find a scene of controlled chaos. Beings of various species worked frantically at control panels, their fatigue evident in sluggish movements and dulled reactions. At the center of the room, contained within shimmering force fields, the quantum core pulsed with unstable energy. Samantha approached the main control panel, her mind racing. The readouts were complex, displaying information in formats she'd never seen before. But as she studied them, patterns began to emerge. "There," she said, pointing to a fluctuating graph. "The core's resonance frequency is shifting. If we can't stabilize it, the whole system will collapse." One of the alien scientists, a being of pure energy encased in a containment suit, crackled with frustration. "We've been trying to modulate the frequency for hours. Nothing works." Samantha frowned, her tired brain struggling to process the information. Then, a wild idea struck her. What if we're approaching this all wrong? We're trying to force the core back into its normal patterns, but what if we need to let it rest instead? The scientists exchanged confused looks. Professor Cloric chittered nervously. "Miss Chen, this is hardly the time for human metaphors." "No, listen," Samantha insisted, her excitement growing. The core's been running continuously since the Academy was built, right? What if it needs a reset, like a power nap? The energy being crackled skeptically. Are you suggesting we turn off the quantum core? That's insane. The computational and structural integrity of the entire Academy depends on it. Not turn it off entirely, Samantha clarified. But what if we could induce a controlled shutdown and restart cycle? Like a reboot for a computer, or like a sleep cycle for a brain. There was a moment of stunned silence as the implications sank in. Then, a flurry of activity erupted as the science team began running simulations based on Samantha's idea. It could work, Professor Cloric said, his mandibles clicking in excitement. But the timing would have to be perfect. Too long, a nap, and we lose containment entirely. Too short, and we don't solve the problem. Samantha nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. I can help with that. Humans have evolved to optimize our sleep cycles. We can apply the same principles here. For the next hour, Samantha worked alongside the alien scientists, applying her unique perspective on rest and rejuvenation to the complex quantum systems. They developed a plan to gradually power down non-essential systems, easing the strain on the core before initiating a brief but complete shutdown. As the moment of truth approached, Dean Zai-Ora joined them in the core chamber. "Are you certain about this, Miss Chen?" she asked, her bioluminescence pulsing with concern. Samantha took a deep breath. "As certain as I can be. It's our best shot." With a nod from the dean, Samantha initiated the shutdown sequence. The lights throughout the Academy dimmed, and a strange stillness fell over the station. For a heart-stopping moment, everything went dark. Then, slowly, systems began to come back online. The quantum core pulsed with renewed stability, its energy patterns smoothing out into familiar rhythms. Cheer went up from the gathered scientists as readouts confirmed what they could all feel. The crisis had been averted. As the emergency subsided and evacuated personnel began returning to the Academy, Samantha found herself the center of attention once again. But this time, the looks she received were filled with newfound respect and understanding. Dean Zai-Ora approached her, the dean's bioluminescent patterns glowing with what Samantha had come to recognize as pride. "Miss Chen, you've done a remarkable thing today. Your unique perspective, your human perspective, may well have saved us all." Samantha blushed, feeling a mix of exhaustion and elation. "I just applied what I knew about sleep and rest cycles. It's something every human understands instinctively." Professor Cloric chittered excitedly. "But that's precisely the point. You've shown us that what we once saw as a vulnerability, your need for sleep, can be a source of incredible insight and problem-solving ability. Perhaps there's more to this sleep than we ever imagined." As the excitement died down and the Academy slowly returned to normal, Samantha couldn't help but feel that a profound shift had occurred. The aliens around her were looking at her, and at themselves, with new eyes. The crisis had forced them to confront their own limitations and to recognize the value of different biological imperatives. Yet even as she basked in the glow of her success, a nagging thought tugged at the back of Samantha's mind. The core's malfunction had been too perfect, too precisely engineered to cause maximum disruption without actually destroying the Academy. Someone had wanted to push the system to its limits, but why? As she finally allowed herself to succumb to much-needed sleep, Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that this crisis, and her role in solving it, was just the beginning of something much bigger. The true test of the Academy's newfound appreciation for human biology, and the challenges it might bring, was yet to come.